Imagine standing at the edge of a silent chasm, the air cool and still, the sound of your breath, the only reminder that you are not already swallowed by the void. You pick up a small stone, hold it over the edge, and let it fall. You wait. 1 second, 2, 5, 10. Still, no sound returns, no echo, no confirmation of ground waiting below. What lies beneath? 1,000 feet? 10,000? Or nothing at all? This is the allure of the bottomless pit, a mystery that has haunted human imagination for centuries. To gaze into such an abyss is to gaze into the unknown, to confront the possibility that there are places on this earth that remain unmeasured, unclaimed, and unexplainable. Welcome to the Secret Box. Here, we unlock the sealed stories hidden from plain sight, not with horror, not with superstition, but with the burning curiosity that drives humanity forward. Today, we descend together into the mystery of the bottomless pit, a riddle carved into stone and shadow. Stay with me, and if you hunger for mysteries that challenge the limits of what we know, subscribe to The Secret Box and join the journey into the unknown. Now, let us step closer to the edge. From the earliest dawn of our species, human beings have stood before the unknown and felt the irresistible pull to ask, what lies beneath? Ancient hunters peered into caverns and sinkholes, their torches flickering against unseen walls, and wondered if the earth itself had an endless stomach that devoured whatever fell within. Travelers crossing deserts stumbled upon gaping voids in the ground and told tales of wells that swallowed not only stones, but entire caravans. Why do we fear these depths? Why are we fascinated by them? Perhaps it is because a pit without bottom seems to defy the order of the world. We measure life in boundaries, in beginnings and endings. We know where rivers meet the sea, where mountains touch the sky, where the day dissolves into night. But a hole with no end? That is a riddle against reason, a direct confrontation with infinity. To stand at the edge of such a place is to feel both small and limitless at once. The darkness below awakens questions inside us. What if it never ends? What if it connects to somewhere else, a hidden chamber beneath the world? Some say bottomless pits are doorways, thresholds into forgotten realms. Others insist they are nothing more than tricks of geology, misunderstood voids yet to be measured. And yet, across every culture, the abyss returns like an echo in our collective memory. The Greeks imagined Tartarus, a prison deeper than death. Norse legends spoke of Ginnungagap, the yawning gap from which all creation was born. In stories whispered by campfires, the bottomless pit becomes a symbol of danger, of curiosity, of the eternal unknown. But symbols alone are not enough. Human beings are not content to wonder. We are driven to explore. We send ropes, lights, divers, and machines into these mysteries. And even when we return with answers, the questions seem only to multiply. Tonight, we follow that instinct. We will travel into the blue holes of the sea, into the labyrinth of caves, into the pages of legend and the laboratories of science. Together, we will search for what it truly means to stare into a pit without end. So, lean closer. The story has only just begun. Beneath the turquoise waters of the Bahamas lies a circle of midnight. From above, it looks like an eye gazing upward from the ocean floor, darker than the sea around it, as though the earth itself had blinked open. This is Dean's Blue Hole, one of the deepest known sinkholes on our planet. At the edges, sunlight dances on white sand, but step only a few meters forward and the ground vanishes, replaced by an endless descent into shadow. Blue holes, these mysterious circular voids scattered across the world's oceans, are perhaps the closest we have to glimpsing infinity. Divers describe the moment of descent as both exhilarating and terrifying. One moment, the reef is alive with color and sound. The next, silence swallows everything. Downward, the water grows still. The pressure mounts. The body trembles with the knowledge that the bottom may be far beyond reach. Why do these formations exist? Science tells us they are born from limestone and time, carved slowly by the acid of rainwater, widened by the collapse of caverns, and filled with the rising seas. Yet knowing the process does not dim their mystery. Imagine dropping a light into the dark throat of the Great Blue Hole in Belize. For long seconds, it disappears entirely. Only when it drifts far below does a faint halo glow against walls of ancient stone. Sinkholes, too, command their own dread. In cities and villages, they arrive without warning. Asphalt splits, earth collapses, and an entire street can be swallowed in a single night. For witnesses, it feels as though the world itself betrayed them, pulling the ground away with no mercy. These sudden mouths in the earth often earn the title of bottomless, not because they are infinite, but because their true depth is unknown in that first terrible instant. Then there are the cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. To the Maya, they were sacred wells, portals to the underworld. Some cenotes are shallow pools of clear water, their surfaces reflecting jungle canopies above, but others descend hundreds of feet into silent caverns where shafts of sunlight pierce the water like holy fire. Explorers who dive these cenotes speak of drifting between worlds, one foot in the living jungle, the other in eternal night. When researchers lower measuring lines or sonar into these pits, they often vanish into depths far greater than expected. Equipment fails, ropes snap, batteries drain faster than logic can explain. And in those moments, even the most rational scientist feels the stir of something older, the suspicion that perhaps this void has no end, that perhaps the earth holds secrets it has no intention of surrendering. Yet explorers continue. Divers train their bodies to resist crushing pressure. They swim deeper, each kick of the fin taking them further from the light above. Some return with maps of hidden chambers, fossilized bones, or strange currents that hint at undiscovered tunnels. Others do not return at all. In their silence, the myth of the bottomless grows stronger. To look at these natural formations is to see a contradiction. Science insists they have limits, that each hole ends in stone or silt. But the human eye, peering into that blue-black emptiness, whispers otherwise. It tells us that we are staring into eternity, and eternity does not give up its secrets easily. Far from the oceans, hidden beneath mountains and forests, lie gateways into another kind of abyss. They do not open with the sudden collapse of a street or the turquoise glow of a tropical cenote. Instead, they lurk as narrow mouths in the rock, inviting the brave or the reckless to descend. These are the deep cave systems, labyrinths that stretch downward in coils and corridors, places where light itself seems to hesitate before entering. Consider Krubera Cave in the Arabica Massif of Georgia, once crowned the deepest known cave in the world. For decades, explorers had speculated on its depths, but it wasn't until teams of international cavers assembled that its secrets began to unfold. They descended chamber by chamber, rope by rope, measuring each drop. The deeper they went, the more the earth seemed to resist. Flooded tunnels forced divers to haul heavy equipment through freezing water. Passages narrowed until only those willing to crawl on their stomachs could continue. And all the while, the thought lingered. What if there is no end? What if we are following the veins of the earth into infinity itself? Caving is unlike any other form of exploration. At sea, you can ascend for air. In the mountains, you can retreat to the surface. But in caves, the surface vanishes above you. Each hour deeper means more hours to return. The weight of rock presses from all directions, and the silence is so absolute that even a drop of water echoes like a drumbeat in your skull. It is in this silence that the abyss seems alive, as though the cave itself is listening. Some explorers speak of the psychological toll, the claustrophobia, the vertigo of vertical shafts, the sense of dangling between nothing and nothing. Yet they return, drawn by the possibility of mapping what has never been mapped, touching stone that has never known human hands. In 2012, divers in Krubera reached more than 2 kilometers below the surface, deeper than any human had ventured underground before, and still, the cave plunged further. There are other giants, Variovkina Cave, which has since surpassed Krubera, stretching even deeper into the Georgian mountains. Each descent adds to the record, but also to the myth. Because no matter how far explorers measure, no matter how many instruments are lowered, the impression remains that the cave is swallowing them whole, that there is always further to go. What makes these cave systems feel bottomless is not only their depth, but their unpredictability. A shaft can end in a sump of black water. A corridor can split into 10, each narrowing into unseen cracks. Mapping them is like chasing shadows. The more you uncover, the more the cave conceals. To stand at the mouth of such a place is to look into the architecture of time itself. These caves were carved over millions of years by rivers that no longer flow, by forces of pressure and erosion too vast for the human mind to fully grasp. And when you descend, you are not simply walking into stone. You are stepping into history, into a record written in darkness long before there were eyes to see it. But even here, where science leads with ropes and measuring tapes, the question of the bottomless persists. Because when you cannot see the end, when every step forward reveals only more blackness, the line between measurable depth and infinity begins to blur. And it is in that blur where the mystery thrives. Long before sonar and measuring lines, people stared into the Earth's silent mouths and filled them with stories. Where science was absent, imagination poured in like water into stone. And so, the bottomless pit became more than a geological riddle. It became a mirror of human fear and wonder. In the American Northwest, there are whispers of Mel's Hole, a supposed well with no bottom, where objects thrown in never made a sound, where even animals shied away from the edge. The tale grew in late-night radio broadcasts, each retelling adding stranger details. Fish with unnatural mutations, ice that burned instead of cooled, a hole that defied not just depth, but the very rules of nature. Whether true or not, the story clung to listeners because it spoke to something deeper than fact. The unease of an opening that refused to be measured, travel further back, and the myths only multiply. In ancient Greece, there was Tartarus, not merely a pit, but a prison for the Titans, buried so deep beneath the earth that an anvil dropped from heaven would fall for 9 days before reaching its floor. To the Greeks, the bottomless pit was punishment itself, a metaphor for eternity in darkness. In Norse lore, before the world was shaped, there was Ginnungagap, the yawning abyss between fire and ice. From this bottomless void, creation was born. To the Norse mind, infinity was not a prison, but a womb, proof that even emptiness can give birth to existence. Across Central America, the Maya treated their cenotes as sacred portals. Sacrifices of gold, pottery, and even human lives were offered into their depths. To cast something into the cenote was to hand it over to the gods, trusting that the bottom would never give it back. For them, bottomless did not mean endless stone, but a direct path to the divine. Even in folklore closer to our time, wells and pits appear again and again as places where reality bends. Villagers warned children not to play near certain holes, claiming that voices could be heard if you listened too closely, or that the pit itself could swallow not just the body, but the soul. In every case, the lack of visible end became fertile ground for stories that both frightened and bound communities together. What ties these myths together is not whether they are true, but what they reveal about us. We cannot resist filling the unknown with meaning. A dark hole is never just a dark hole. It becomes a gateway, a prison, a birth chamber, a curse. And perhaps that is the truest bottomless pit of all, the endless depths of our imagination. But legends alone cannot silence the question. The scientist, the explorer, the skeptic still demands, how deep is it really? How do we know for certain? And that is where we turn next. To the tools of modern science, to the lights and machines that dare to measure the immeasurable. For centuries, the abyss taunted us with silence. Stones vanished without a sound, legends multiplied in the dark, and explorers risked their lives to glimpse a bottom they could not touch. But in time, humanity learned to fight mystery with method. Science brought its own lanterns into the void. The first tool was the simplest, rope. Weighted lines lowered into wells and caverns, each knot a question, each measure a possible answer. But ropes snapped, knots jammed in unseen ledges. And when the line went slack, who could say if it touched the true floor or only a shelf far above it? So we reached for new instruments. Sonar, pulses of sound sent downward, listening for echoes. In open water, sonar revealed blue holes plunging hundreds of feet beneath the waves. The echoes painted ghostly maps of chambers no eye had ever seen. Yet even sonar has limits. In water thick with silt, in caves with twisting passages, the echoes scatter, confusing the picture, leaving room for doubt. Remote-operated vehicles built for the pressure of the deep carried cameras into these spaces. Their lights pierced the water like artificial suns, catching glimpses of stalactites that once hung in dry air thousands of years ago, now drowned by a rising sea. Machines crawled where divers could not, but even they faltered when the tunnels narrowed, when the power of depth drained their batteries faster than expected. In some caves, scientists used dye tracing, pouring harmless colored dye into the water, watching where it emerged miles away. What seemed like a bottomless pit was revealed instead as a network of underground rivers, veins of the planet connecting in ways no surface map could predict. Suddenly, a hole that seemed infinite was not a void at all, but a door into another system, another story written in stone. Geologists scanned with ground-penetrating radar, peeling back the earth like layers of parchment. Their images showed sinkholes widening below the surface, massive caverns waiting to collapse. What looked like an endless hole to the naked eye could be measured, mapped, explained. And yet, the paradox remains. The more tools we bring, the more the mystery seems to deepen. Machines return with blurred footage, ropes come back frayed, sonar shows shadows that may or may not exist. We know more than ever, and still the question lingers, how deep is deep enough? Science does not kill the mystery, it sharpens it. Each discovery is another layer peeled away, revealing not certainty, but more complexity. Where myth once told us these pits were prisons for gods or paths to other realms, science tells us they are windows into geological time, testaments to forces so vast we cannot live long enough to see them play out. And yet, whether we stand with myth or with measurement, the feeling at the edge is the same. Our tools can map the darkness, but they cannot erase the silence that follows when a stone falls and never returns. So we ask again, what if there truly were a pit with no end at all? What would happen if we dropped something into infinity? Close your eyes and imagine a pit with no walls to interrupt, no floor to stop the fall, no hidden chamber waiting to be discovered. A true bottomless pit. You pick up a coin, hold it over the edge, and let it slip from your fingers. It falls, and keeps falling. What would happen next? At first, gravity takes command. The coin accelerates, faster and faster, rushing into the void. In our everyday world, objects stop when they meet the ground. But here, there is no ground. The descent becomes endless. Seconds stretch into minutes, minutes into hours, each one carrying the coin deeper into nothing. But physics is never so simple. Air itself would resist the fall, a constant invisible hand slowing the plunge. Friction against the walls of atmosphere would cause the coin to heat, glowing faintly as it burned its energy into the air around it. Eventually, it would reach what scientists call terminal velocity, the fastest possible speed in this tug-of-war between gravity and resistance. From that moment on, the coin would continue downward forever, never faster, never slower, locked in an eternal fall. Now imagine throwing yourself into that pit. The human body would accelerate just the same, the rush of air pressing against your chest, the scream caught in your throat. At terminal velocity, the fall would no longer feel like acceleration, but like floating, suspended in a stream that never ends. You would have no horizon, no ground to anticipate, no reference point at all, only the feeling of motion without destination. And if the pit cut through the entire Earth, from one side to the other, in theory, you would fall past the core, pulled faster and faster until gravity began to tug you back toward the center. You would slow, stop for a fraction of a second, then fall upward, back the way you came. The journey would repeat endlessly, an infinite pendulum swinging through the heart of the planet, never at rest. Such a vision is both terrifying and strangely beautiful, a reminder that infinity is not only a concept, but an experience we can almost touch. It teaches us something about our hunger for answers. We are not satisfied with boundaries. We want to test the edges of reality, to know what happens when there is no end. But of course, in the real world, the earth is solid, and even the deepest pits meet their limit in stone, water, or molten fire. And yet the thought remains, clinging to us. What if there truly was a place with no bottom? Would it be a prison or a passageway, a curse or a gift? In the thought experiment of the bottomless pit, we glimpse more than physics. We glimpse ourselves, the restless searchers, the questioners, the ones who drop a stone into the dark, not just to know what lies below, but to confront the endlessness above and within. At the edge of every abyss, we face not just the darkness below, but the questions inside ourselves. A bottomless pit is more than a hole in the ground. It is a reminder of how fragile our certainties are, how quickly the solid earth beneath our feet can dissolve into doubt. We measure, we calculate, we descend with ropes and machines, and still, when we look down into the blackness, we feel the same chill our ancestors felt thousands of years ago. The abyss humbles us. It whispers that for all our knowledge, there will always be mysteries beyond our reach, and perhaps that is the true power of the bottomless pit. Not that it hides an infinite depth, but that it awakens in us an infinite curiosity. To wonder is to be human. To seek is to be alive. And though the earth may place boundaries around us, our imagination knows no bottom, no end. So as we close this journey, I ask you, what are the bottomless pits in your own life? What questions keep pulling you deeper, urging you to search, to dive, to explore, even when answers seem impossible? Perhaps the lesson is not to find the bottom, but to embrace the fall itself, to let curiosity be the gravity that carries us ever forward. This has been The Secret Box, where mysteries are not doors we close, but windows we open. If tonight's descent into the unknown stirred something inside you, subscribe to The Secret Box and continue the journey with us. Together, we will seek the stories hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. And as you step back from the edge, remember this. Some holes may have a bottom, some may not, but the real abyss lies in the endless depths of our own questions. And that abyss is infinite.